They called it the Trial of Gryvac, an ancient battleground where species from Deathworlds clashed for dominance without open war. The stakes weren't just honor. They were influence, treaties, and the right to reshape borders across a dozen sectors. No human had ever stepped foot here. Until now. Captain Elias Rhain stood at the edge of the arena, gazing out over the vast circle of crimson stone and obsidian sand. The sun above Gryvac 6 cast long shadows over the jagged terrain. Obelisks of alien bone, trophies from past victories, jutted from the ground like gravestones. Above, in the balconies carved into the cliffs, thousands of spectators, scaled, feathered, plated, watched in silence. Then came the laughter. Not all at once. It rolled like thunder, first from the Clivec, who hissed between serrated teeth, then from the Pralex, whose gill sacs pulsed in rhythmic mockery. A human, one translator drone crackled above the crowd. Did the Terrans misfile their champion request? Elias popped a piece of gum into his mouth. Peppermint. It tasted like home. Behind him, Ambassador Saren's voice crackled through the comlink in his ear. Elias, I'm still not sure about this. We could have sent in a mechanized unit, or even... No, Elias interrupted, calm. We send machines, they'll call us cowards. We send brutes, they'll mock our intellect. They need to see us. As we are. The entry gates rumbled. From the opposing tunnel emerged a towering figure, 8 feet of armored muscle. Vrys Tak, champion of the Varkari. His exoskeletal plates shimmered like volcanic rock, and twin fangs protruded from his mandibles, polished to a ceremonial shine. His war banners fluttered, inked in the blood of every species he had defeated. He strode into the arena, each step shaking the ground. The crowd fell silent. Vrys Tak looked at Elias like a bored apex predator sizing up a squirrel. This is the Terran, he boomed, voice translated and broadcast across the cliffs. He wears no armor. Carries no blade. What is this insult? Elias chewed. Blew a small bubble. Let it pop. Name's Elias, he said, stepping forward. Captain. Earthborn. Terran Vanguard. He looked around, made sure the cameras caught his smirk. And yeah, I left the armor at home. Thought it'd be rude to overdress. Laughter again, but this time scattered, uncertain. Vrys Tak's 4 eyes narrowed. You mock the trial. You mock our traditions. Elias held his gaze. I respect them. I just don't think they apply to us the way you think they do. A moment of silence stretched long and taut. Then the trial master, or robed in multi-limbed neutral officiator, floated forward on a levitating dais. By the laws of the Accord, this is a sanctioned engagement, it rasped. Trial will proceed. First phase, unarmed dominion. Begin upon sound. A deep gong echoed across the arena. Elias didn't move. Neither did Vrys Tak. Then the warlord lunged. He covered 20 meters in a blink, claws like machetes aimed at Elias's throat. But the human was already rolling sideways, dust kicking up behind him. He ducked under a bone pillar, let Vrys Tak crash through it. The crowd roared. Elias didn't run far. He moved in tight circles, staying just out of reach. He knew the terrain, had memorized every dip and rise. The arena wasn't just a circle of stone, it was a map of opportunities. Vrys Tak charged again. Elias darted between 2 obsidian spikes, forcing the bulkier Varkari to pivot awkwardly. His claw grazed Elias's shoulder, but only just. Running, the warlord spat. Dancing, Elias replied. You should try it. Might loosen you up. The warlord snarled, charging again. Elias flipped backwards over a loose slab of stone he'd marked earlier. When Vrys Tak's weight landed on it, nothing happened. Until he took his next step. The slab gave way into a pit trap. Shallow, but deep enough to throw him off balance. Elias kicked a shard of debris into the warlord's exposed side, just under the 3rd rib plate. Not to injure. To insult. VrysH roared, tearing out of the pit. His pride was now louder than his strategy. From the cliffs, the laughter had died. Spectators leaned forward, antennae twitching, tentacles curling. This wasn't how these fights went. The weaker one was supposed to die quickly. Elias wiped dust from his brow. His heart pounded, but his eyes were calm. You know what they say about humans, he called out, circling. We're fragile. Slow. Easy to break. VrysH stalked him now, slower. Watching. Elias continued, voice steady. What they forget to mention is we don't fight to win. He stopped. Met the warlord's gaze. We fight to survive. And if we survive long enough, he smiled, just a little. We learn everything about you. The trialmaster's voice boomed once more. Phase 1 complete. Neither death nor concession. Advancement to Phase 2, toxic endurance. The ground began to shift. Plates of the arena sank, revealing a new biome rising from beneath, a swamp of iridescent algae, with gases bubbling from beneath its surface. The air shimmered with biotoxins. Elias took one long breath before his rebreather activated. It wouldn't last long. He had minutes, maybe. VrysH species could breathe nearly anything. As they descended into the swamp, the warlord growled, "Your tricks end here, Terran. This trial will rot you from the inside." Elias glanced down at the moss coating the rocks. He'd scanned similar compounds during the prep. If he was right, the moss neutralized part of the swamp's acid. He crouched, rubbed some against the seals of his boots and gloves. The toxins hissed but didn't corrode. Good. One less thing to worry about. You don't get it, do you? Elias said, rising. I didn't come here to prove we're strong. He looked up at the warlord, the reflection of toxic fog in his visor. I came here to prove we're dangerous. The swamp hissed like it was alive. Steam rose in spirals from bubbling green ponds. Gnarled roots coiled across the slick terrain, hiding sinkholes and predator plants. The reek was acidic, part ozone, part rotting flesh. Elias Rhain trudged forward, chest heaving beneath his suit, every breath burning despite the rebreather's filters. He glanced at the HUD in his visor. Oxygen saturation dropping. Toxin filtration at 43%. Not great. VrysH was already moving, half gliding through the sludge. His forelegs spread wide for balance, his black armor plates gleaming with thick ooze that didn't burn him. His kind had evolved in volcanic swamps like this. This was his element. Elias knew he had minutes. Maybe less if his suit breached. Feeling the sting, Terran? VrysH called out across the mist. You cannot outlast what was born in death. Elias didn't answer. He was focused on the moss again, this time a darker, pulsing variety clinging to a cracked boulder. He ran a quick scan with his wrist module. The composition matched a sample he'd studied during prep, microcin H9, a naturally occurring pH regulator used by native species to insulate eggs. He scraped a handful into a small pouch. Then, carefully, he rubbed it across the air intake valve on his suit, watching the readout flicker, then stabilize. Breathing just got easier. Across the arena, VrysH waded through sludge like a tank. You hide in samples and spores, he snarled. You delay the inevitable. Elias crouched behind a twisted root, checking the proximity readings. The Valkyrie was close, within 10 meters. Heavy footsteps squelched toward him. Then silence. Elias listened. The mist played tricks, but he trusted his gut more than the tech. Behind. He spun just in time to block a backhand strike. The blow slammed into his shield bracer, knocking him into a bramble. Thorn vines tore across his back, cutting through the suit. Pain flared as acid seeped into the wound. He gritted his teeth. Okay, that hurt. VrysH didn't press the attack. Instead, he watched Elias pull himself out of the bramble, blood staining his side. You feel that, Terran? That's nature reminding you what you are. Elias straightened. Inconvenient? The warlord blinked. Then lunged. Elias sidestepped, barely avoiding a swipe aimed at his neck. He ducked under a branch, landed in waist-deep muck, then kicked upward, splattering Vryshtach's face with sludge. The Valkyrie hesitated, not from pain, but confusion. The act was childish, crude, and completely against warrior form. Elias used that hesitation to drive a shock pulse from his bracer into a root. The current surged through the swamp water, just enough to disrupt local predators. Bubbles erupted as something massive swam away. He climbed out and back toward a higher ridge, a patch of cracked stone. Safe footing. Vryshtach followed slower now. His tone shifted. You fear me. Yet you keep moving. Why? Elias pulled a small canister from his belt. He tossed it into a nearby pool. When it hit, the surface ignited, flames swirling into a chemical flash that lit the area in a dome of light. For a second, both men were visible to the crowd. I'm not here to win, Elias said, voice echoing across the swamp. I'm here to prove something. To whom? To everyone watching. Including you. The crowd had grown quieter now. The laughter was gone. From the Clivec to the insectoid Telsari, they leaned closer to their screens and vision ports. This human wasn't dying. He was surviving smart. Vryshtach moved again, this time slower. Calculated. What is it you believe makes your kind dangerous? Elias wiped sweat from his brow, smearing moss and blood. You're fast. Strong. Built for killing. But you think in straight lines. You expect everyone to follow your rules. He pointed at the swamp. You made this your proving ground. So I studied it. Broke it apart. Figured out how to turn your home into a weapon against you. Vryshtach snarled. You insult the arena. I exploit it. The warlord charged, but Elias was ready. He led him through a patch of false terrain, shimmering algae on the surface of what looked like solid ground. Vryshtach stepped in, and sank. Not far, but enough to drop his center of gravity. Elias moved in and jammed the last of his shock pulse cells against the warlord's exposed inner joint. The pulse snapped Vryshtach's leg sideways. Not broken, but stunned. The warlord roared in pain and fury. Elias backed away, arms raised. You want the kill? Come take it. But understand this, I'm not fighting you. I'm fighting your idea of what strength is. He staggered back to the ridge. Blood dripped from his side. His vision blurred. But he stayed upright. Vryshtach pulled himself from the sludge, panting, less from injury, more from humiliation. The trialmaster's voice cut through the air again. Second phase complete. Combatants remain active. Proceeding to final phase, the trial of choice. The swamp terrain retracted, stone floors rising beneath their feet as the mist dissipated. Elias collapsed to one knee, breathing ragged. The crowd murmured. For the first time in Gryvac history, a human had lasted 2 phases. A platform rose from the center of the arena. Upon it, 20 weapons shimmered in stasis fields, ancient tools of war from a dozen worlds. Each warrior would choose one. Elias stood slowly. Vryshtach approached first. Without hesitation, he lifted the Thunderblade, a plasma-forged weapon that crackled with barely contained energy. It was his signature blade. A weapon that had ended hundreds of lives. Elias studied the options. Guns. Spears. Neural whips. He scanned past all of them. Then he saw it. A shield. Small. Dull silver. No energy field. No AI. Just a dense plate of reflective alloy. He took it. The arena fell into stunned silence. Vryshtach chuckled, low and cruel. You bring a lid to a blood duel? Elias gripped the shield tight. "No," he said. "I brought a mirror." The air in the arena turned heavy, silent, coiled with expectation. VrysH stood tall, thunderblade humming in his grip, arcs of plasma flickering along its edge. The ground at his feet sizzled. He towered like a walking execution. Every movement of the blade sang of raw, focused destruction. Elias Rhain faced him, armor torn, blood crusting across his ribs, and in his hand, a round, unadorned shield. Not even powered. A solid slab of alloy, dull and scuffed, its only feature a curved surface reflecting the arena lights. "Do you know what that is?" VrysH sneered, voice amplified for all to hear. "A ceremonial disc from a broken planet. It does not even cut." Elias adjusted his stance. His left leg trembled slightly beneath him, but he held firm. "It doesn't have to cut," he replied. "Just has to stop something." He slid one foot back, angled the shield forward, and smiled. "Come on, then." The gong rang. The warlord launched forward with a roar, the thunderblade a streak of light in his hands. It came down in a diagonal arc meant to split Elias in half. Elias twisted, dropped his center, and raised the shield. Clang. The arena rang out with a shockwave as the thunderblade slammed into the curved alloy. A ripple of force surged through Elias's arm, nearly snapping his elbow, but he held. He pivoted on impact, redirecting the force to the side, just enough for the blade to slide off. VrysH blinked. Just a fraction of a second. But Elias caught it. He moved again. Fast. Every time the blade came down, Elias didn't block, he deflected. Redirected. Let VrysH momentum work against him. "Do you understand it now?" Elias said between breaths. "You're not fighting a wall. You're fighting water." The Valkyrie struck low. Elias jumped back. The edge of the blade singed his boot but missed vital flesh. "You use no weapon." VrysH spat, circling now, visibly frustrated. "You mock the trial again." "No," Elias answered, "I'm redefining it." He turned the shield slightly to catch the arena lights. The curvature gleamed, reflecting not just brightness, but motion. VrysH caught his own image in the mirror surface, bloodied, angry, stumbling. That was the point. "Look at yourself," Elias said, his voice firm. "You think you're still fighting prey. You're not. You're fighting yourself." VrysH roared and swung the blade horizontally, hard enough to crack stone. Elias ducked, then stepped inward, shield pressed against the warlord's forearm, using the flat surface to slide under his guard. He rammed the edge of the shield into a sensitive joint under the Valkyrie's shoulder, where bone met armor. The blade dropped. Only for a second. But Elias had seen what he needed. The Thunderblade's hilt had a small flux port. And it was glowing too hot. Too hot for something that size. "You overcharged it," Elias muttered. "Of course you did." He backed off just as the warlord retrieved the weapon. VrysH swung with renewed fury. The heat in the blade began to warp the air. Plasma overloaded, each strike trailing unstable arcs. The crowd started murmuring. Elias sprinted to the edge of the arena. Not running, baiting. VrysH followed. His movements were slower now, heavier, as the blade grew unstable. Elias stopped near one of the obsidian pillars and turned. "You want to end this?" he shouted. "Then finish it." The Valkyrie raised the blade high, screaming in rage, bringing it down with all his might. Elias didn't meet the strike head-on. He angled the shield, tilted it just right, and braced. The thunderblade hit the curved surface, and reflected light and plasma outward in a chaotic beam. The reflection wasn't perfect. It wasn't supposed to be. It bent the energy, focused it just enough to redirect the overload. The beam snapped backward, right into VrysH's exposed abdomen, where his lower plating had been damaged during the swamp phase. A split second. A flash. Then silence. VRYSH tack staggered. The thunderblade fell, deactivated. Smoke rose from a seared gash across his midsection. He dropped to one knee, breathing heavy, forearms trembling. Elias stood above him, shield lowered. "It's done." The crowd didn't cheer. Not yet. They didn't know what to do. The undefeated apex predator had just been beaten, by a man with a mirror. The trial master descended slowly, its multiple eyes blinking in synchronized rhythm. Combatant VRYSH tack has failed to disable opponent. Combatant Elias Rhain retains capacity. Trial complete. Victory, humanity. Still, no applause. Just stunned silence. Elias stepped forward. Every part of him ached. His muscles burned. His ribs felt cracked. But he walked anyway. He stood in front of the kneeling Valkyrie. The towering warlord looked up, bleeding, breathing like a dying beast. Elias offered his hand. "This wasn't about beating you," he said quietly. "It was about proving something bigger." VRYSH tack stared at the hand. His pride waged war with his instinct. Then, slowly, he reached up and gripped it. Elias pulled him to his feet. The crowd gasped. From above, the announcer's voice finally returned. Per the accord, the victor's species is hereby granted strategic combatant status within Deathworld proceedings. Humanity, classified. The delegates in the viewing balconies scrambled. Some recorded. Others argued. The Terran flag blinked across a dozen hollow screens, no longer ignored, now feared. Later, in the med bay, Elias sat with a glass of water and a needle in his arm, rehydration fluids pumping in. Ambassador Saren stood nearby, arms crossed, a stunned look still on her face. "You know," she said softly, "no one thought you'd last more than 5 minutes." Elias leaned back, closed his eyes, and chuckled. "Neither did I." She stared at the shield resting on the table beside him. "That wasn't just a reflection, was it?" He opened one eye. "No. It was perspective."